His Royal Majesty Isebantu, Mugisa Elisha Ateenyi entale ya Banyabindi. I am a Banyabindi typical, and I take the whole of this region, especially Rwenzori region, where most of the Banyabindi are found, but I'm a Ugandan, a Pan-African, and an international figure. So I'm glad to meet you, especially those from the international world. I have heard that we have people from South Sudan. I think that is a great work that you've done to unite together as a team.
Briefly tell us about the history of the Banyabindi and how they came to settle in this area.
Banyabindi are the first inhabitants to occupy this very area called Songora, the former county of Bunyoro Kitara before its disintegration. Banyabindi are Banyabindi, Runyabindi, Runyoro Toro speaking community who originates from the Abatembuzi, then from the Abatembuzi dynasty to the Bachwezi dynasty, from the Bachwezi dynasty, Abavito, and now Banyabindi. We are the aboriginals of Bunyoro Kitara, and this was part of Bunyoro Kitara. So we are not here by mistake that either we migrated to this place. This is our original place. Other communities found us here because, as I've told you, those who have studied history, you know the history of the Batembuzi, the Bachwezi, and today, here I am as the king, following those kings.
Our third question is, what is the perception of climate change in your community?
Climate change, to my community, we perceive it as the change of the climate from its original, how the place used to be, and how it looks like today. Then we make a comparison. Has there been any impact? If, for example, this area had forests and they are no longer there, they have disappeared, either because of man activities or by nature, we still regard that as very important to us that we are no longer living in the same situation how we used to be. Two, this place you see, I don't know, but if you can go and ask your fathers, like my grandson here, if you can ask your grandfather and grandmother, those who are still alive, they will able to tell you that this place was a cool place. And the reason was because of having so many trees, the rivers were flowing efficiently, not with stones and floods. All those have changed, and it has impacted on us.
The next question, which says you should describe how climate change has affected Mount Rwenzori and the surrounding areas.
One, we have experienced too much sunshine. And when we grow our crops, they no longer grow and yield as how we used to get our harvests formerly. Two, we have had much floods because of that climate change, especially due to destruction of forests and other natural resources. We have also had some problems related to silting of the lakes, because as rain follows on the bare ground, it takes away soil, causing soil erosion. And at the end of the day, most of the soils stop into our lakes, especially Lake Edward and Lake George, the nearby lakes. So it is also causing a lot of problems, both on human beings and the aquatic life.
Then what traditional methods does your tribe use to?
There are so many. First of all, we used to grow trees, and we are still advocating, I'm still commanding to advocate for planting more trees to curb this situation. Then two, there were traditional methods. For example, we could determine the season. We had some special clans who had elders in those clans that would come across and say, no, we are predicting this. The season might not be good for us. And if we can't do this, this will happen. For example, if people predicted that we are going to have drought season, we had rainmakers, and they are still there. The families that are responsible for rainmaking, they are there, and they would go and do that. Another point was to sweep and clean the area, beginning from the mountains. I'm glad that my youths from Bakonjo are here. And I know you believe in Mumbere, my brother Mumbere. But if you can ask your fathers or your forefathers, they will be able to tell you that when Mumbere was coming from the mountains in 1980, it was the Banyabindi who first helped him to calm down by first cleansing the land. Without that, out of what he had committed, he would not come down. He would suffer and die either from the way. But I'm not saying there was any Banyabindi that was going to charm him. But there are issues on this mountain that Banyabindi do to make sure that the area is clean. For your fellow youth, I'm just giving you an information. It is from his very family, this interviewer, that they have their, I don't know how I would call it, whether it is a swamp, I don't know to term that, but they have what we call China cha Mliango, found in Viduku. If you put a banana stem, you put it there in this China cha Mliango, it is up there in the mountains. You will find it in Katwe. Can you imagine? But they are the ones responsible for that. And it has its own magic to do with the climate. And very many others who also have China cha Kasegu. So all those were traditional methods to protect and prevent some of the climate change effects.
Okay, thank you. What are some of the traditional agricultural practices that your tribe uses to adapt to harsh weather conditions?
These people were typically tradition. They had not gone to school, but they were trying to preserve the environment. For example, the traditional methods, they used to plant crops that would also curtail on the effects of climate change. For example, millet, planting millet, which would also work as food, but at the same time to curb rain, not to move away and take soil erosion. We also had some grass like bamboo, the reeds, planting them along the river banks. They had some trees, special species for trees, to act as mitigators of climate change in terms of negative effects, but also to produce air for them. And such a trees were like the bark tree, where we get bark cloth, and the msambia, and like the current ones now, where people have planted eucalyptus trees, and these are the new species that consume much. So those were part of the traditional methods of agricultural practices. And of course, when they were planting, they would also use kind of contours, especially those on the hills, because all these plains and hills you see belonged to Banyabindi, and they were using them effectively.
If those traditions were really being used to do the cleansing and cleaning, what happened and why are they no longer being done?
Some of them were affected by government. Like, for example, during the gazetting of the national park, especially Queen Elizabeth National Park, we had our heritage sites that were carved into that park. And they are those places that we used to go for sacrifice for the land, to sacrifice for anything related to tradition methods of protecting the area and our people. For example, I know when you were coming from Kasese, you bypassed this lake near Chikorongo. This is a man-made lake. It was made by a Mnyabindi called Ndahora, who actually, because he had so many cows and he wanted his cows to be getting water from nearby, where he was staying there. So he decided to construct a man-made lake and brought water from Lake George to come and be in his dam. This place, after it had been created there, because Ndahora was part of the Bachwezi, we have things that we do there as a Banyabindi community, but are no longer being done now. We have another place still deep but near Chikorongo, in between Lake Nyamunuka and Chikorongo area. There is where we call a Nyindo Zensi. If I can interpret it in English, the nose of the world, where actually the world breathes from. This is our site where we used to go for certain rituals. And by the way, as I had told you earlier, not every Munyabindi would go there. We had specific families for specific activities, but all meant for the protection of the area and the people surrounding or staying in this area. And others, even including Lake Katwe salt. This one, if wanted to get more salt, there is a family from the Mudungu family who have that responsibility to work on the methods and sacrifice to make sure that people get or harvest much salt.
As a cultural leader, don't we see that religion is also responsible for washing away our traditional norms? For instance, there are things that you may do by culture and the church will say it is evil. So how do you blend culture and religion?
How do you perceive and take the religion? For example, bringing religion here was secondary. The people of Africa, and especially, or in particular Banyabindi, we had our own religion. We could believe in that religion and things could work, even before these Europeans came. But the Europeans brought this religion, the current religion now that people believe in, just to colonize the people, to colonize the Africans. So it has impacted very much and negatively on our populations. Otherwise, as a person, not because we are in the church, this is just a building. The church is you. The church is me. So it depends on how you have taken things. It's like the Reverend could stand here and say, please kneel down, I'm going to pray for you. Praying for me. Do you know my problems better than I know them? That is nonsense. You must first know your problem and appreciate them, then devise means. So the church, I just see it as a church. Of course, when time comes, I also come because I was deceived and joined it. But it doesn't take away my rights of believing in my culture and traditions.
How do the rain methods work?
I even have them around here in Kinyamaseke. You go there and tell them or tell the person responsible that please, it is shining too much. Can you help us put rain? It will be there. And they have their original stones to make, even if you wanted rain associated with wind, associated with the say hailstones, you will get it. Any type of rain that you want.